Hi everyone and welcome along. Today we're going to paint a lovely starry night scene that can either work really well as a Christmas card or just a lovely painting practice. So grab your paints and let's get started. So I've got a piece of card that is also ready, sort of cut into greetings card shape, and I've just scored down there. The card area I'm painting is roughly sort of 4 by 6 inches. And we need some masking tape. I mean, you don't have to mask off the area, you could do some nice sort of raw edges, but I'm quite into the crisp lines you get. Ooh. The crisp lines that you get. So, and it also just helps us put our piece of paper fixed in place. So I'm just going to mask out the edges, giving probably about ½ centimetre overlap, and then of course we want to make sure there's a similar looking overlap on the card edge here, so I'm just going to pop that down as well. I've got my large Pro Art Connoisseur brush, it's a sort of mop brush, in because I need to first wet the page, so that's another reason why we mask it down before, so it just helps prevent the page warping. Now we're going to create a lovely night sky, a starry night, and I want to play around with the beautiful colours that we see in the night sky, so we're not just going to go completely sort of classic blues and blacks. I thought it would be quite fun to get a few sort of purples and pinks in there as well, because so often you do see sort of in particularly sort of dazzling skies all sorts of colours. So I've got some Cobalt Violet here and some alizarin crimson, which will be fun to include, and I've also got Paynes Grey, which is a beautiful deep inky dark colour, and then some other blues, French Ultramarine, Prussian Blue is a wonderful turquoisey sort of dark blue. And what we're going to do is we're going to paint a graded sky. So it's going to be very dark at the top, and we're going to gradually bring down that colour. So you want a large-ish brush. I've got a size 8 rounded point here, which will be good to start with. And I am going to begin, I think, with one of the mid colours. When I say mid colour, I mean I just don't want the deepest, darkest tone first, and I don't want these lighter highlights in just yet, because I just want to sort of establish a base really. So as I draw this bit of colour down, just single brush stroke by brush stroke, the colour is fading, and even though I sort of painted in what look like sort of lines, they all blend into each other now. I'm now going to try just sort of dropping in sort of swirls, I guess, of some of these pink tones before I begin to really darken everything down with sweeps of the dark colour. Now as this dries, it's all going to lighten, and a lot of these colours we're putting in will almost disappear. But it's all about being patient, building up the layers. So we're going to let this dry. I'm just taking most of the colour off my brush now and just dragging it down, because we want to have a fairly pale lower area. We don't want it completely colourless though, because we want to give the sense that we are at night. So I'm going to let that dry, and I'm going to bring in more colour once it's dried. So we've given this some time to dry, and you know what? I am actually really thrilled with that. I am going to leave it as it is. I'm not going to add more colour to it. I'm really happy with the level of darkness, with the concentration. So it's amazing how sometimes with watercolour it just surprises you. So we're going to carry on. We're just going to keep going. So we need that to be 100% dry. to begin painting in our trees. And I'm going to use Paynes Grey as my tree colour because it is the sort of deepest, darkest accent colour throughout this piece. So I've got a nice little bit mixed up in my palette just there, and I've got a size 0 brush and a 4/10 brush that I'm going to be sort of working with, and we are going to paint in a misty set of, well, Christmas trees or pine trees, depending on whether you want to make this a Christmassy thing. And I'm going to show you how I paint my simple pine trees. Well, I did actually paint some Christmas trees in the last session, but this goes even simpler. So I'm sort of looking about 2/3 the way down the card where it really does start to get lighter, and I've got quite a dilute amount of paint on my brush, and these are going to be trees that are really quite far away. So what I'm doing is I'm just getting water on my brush, and I'm using that central line of quite wet dilute colour to just draw in some very faint trees. Let's do that again. So a line, central line, and then from the top just starting to zigzag over that central line with water on my brush, and I'm using a really small brush, but that's because I want these trees to be quite delicate and distant, and as we get to the bottom we really want it to blend almost into nothing. So these trees are really faint, the ones that you struggle to see in the mist in the distance. So I'm just going to put a cluster of these in. With my little 4/10 brush. You've got to work quite fast to make sure you don't get too much of a distinct central line. So just really let them blend into nothing. I think the most important thing is letting them blend into nothing. And if I sort of stare at this and allow my mind to wander, I sort of feel like I am looking into a very sort of snowy wilderness of distant and misty trees. These don't take long to dry at all. So let's move on to the next stage. So the trees are going to be slightly larger. They're going to come down further, and largely they're going to be bigger and a bit bolder. So this time, still with my little brush, is instead of just going zigzag across, I'm now slightly angling down my brush strokes, and I'm also starting to think I might want to swap it up for a size 0. Yeah, because we need a bit more brush on the page. Try not to let them go too wide. Remember, these fir trees go quite tall. And when we get to this point, I'm going to start now taking the colour off my brush, and we want to sort of blend it again into nothing. Now if you do have a really strong line like that, we can just sort of dab at it with the brush a little bit, which will just remove a little bit of that central line, but we're going to just blend it into the page, and it will soon dry and blend into nothing. I'll never learn. As a left-hander, you should always start on this side of the page, but there you go. Right, so I'm going to pop in one here and try not to make it the same height. I might make it, do that one there. So actually, here's a trick. Let's blend that in at the bottom to start off with. And now, just in case you're not the fastest painter and you need a little bit of help, Now don't make these so dark because we're going to have one more layer of tree in this composition, so we're still quite dilute. That central line is so important though for the tree trunk, just to help you get a nice straight-ish tree. Really nice. Just really making sure I blend that off into the land. Okay, let's have one here. I still think using the little brush is good for that central trunk. And now they overlap over the previous layer of very faint trees. It's a rather lovely interaction of the two layers. Now, although this Christmas card idea takes a little more time, it's still extremely effective considering how little time it takes. Okay, just get a load of water on the page to blend that into the land. Lovely. Here is our scene now, all nice and dry, and they've also blended into the land, so that's really cool. So now we need to mix up the most concentrated mix of not Prussian Blue, Paynes Grey. So I don't want too much dilution, but we do still want it quite wet. Okay, and now we need to think about composition. Well, I do want one there. So I've got my size 0 brush, and it's always quite nerve-wracking putting in these trees, but ugh. It's so funny, I don't want to ruin it. Okay, here we go. And so this one's going to be biggest of all, but I am still going to just blend, and in fact we're getting bigger and bigger, so bigger brush. Let's get that nice and clean, there we go. Right. Using size 0, and this time the tree is crisper, more detailed, so I'm going a little bit slower, thinking just a little bit more about the sort of finesse and the detail, using a much more concentrated amount of paint. And here we go, we're going plunging down into the inky depths. Just try and sort of keep that brush nice and clean. Okay, really happy with that one. I think we'll have one there and one there, but let's Let's mix up some more Paynes Grey. So just hold your nerve. If you want to have a practice on a separate bit of paper first, that's absolutely fine. I think this one's going to be really tall. And actually, that one's going to go straight down into the bottom of the page because it's so in the foreground, this tree, that it's beyond our line of sight. It's so clever how you can play with optical illusions almost to trick the eye into thinking what's far away, what's close up, and just the horizon line goes down as well as up as you come closer. So don't forget that. So what I mean by that is the closer something is, of course, the lower the baseline of it is going to be as well. And don't worry about your lovely trees that you painted in previous layers if they're being covered up, because just remember, it's all about these subtle bits of detail that you have created that are making this piece really fantastic. So just keep mixing up that concentrated Paynes Grey, but make sure there's a decent amount of water in there as well, just so it moves nicely. And there we go, right into the base of the card. Really anchoring the eye. Okay, it's time to do some stars. Now, as this is a Christmas card, I'm going to do the star, and I'm just going to draw a pencil line down the middle and a line across. I'm going to use my metallic Finetech palette, and here we go. Let's paint that in with some nice silver. And I'm going to squish the brush down. Get the fine point. And move right round because it's a bit of an awkward angle. You can choose to put the star in, or whether you wish or not, and then I like to just sort of do a few very, very faint lines coming out from the centre. You could just sort of elongate that, and then what we're going to do is we're going to splatter all the stars across the sky. If you didn't want to use metallics, you could always use a white gouache or acrylic, but I quite like this. So I'm going to take a larger brush and I'm going to just flick the silver. It's quite wet, quite thick silver paint. And there we go, just need to wait for that to dry. And here we are, peeling off the paper, the tape, once that silver paint has dried. And then I can just fold my card, and there you have the first of many Christmas card designs that I hope will inspire you. Thanks so much for watching. I want to say a massive thank you to my patrons for their support, because that support enables me to keep creating these videos that everyone can enjoy. And if you enjoyed it, then hit the like button and comment below to let me know how you got on with that one. And if you never want to miss another video, just hit that subscribe button and the little notification bell just next to it and you'll be sorted. Until next time, bye!